Dara Gibson, and I am your cyber insurance specialist. I am actually a certified cyber insurance specialist, so I do know what I'm talking about. So we're here today to demystify these crazy comments of cyber insurance. Now, what we're going to talk about today is how many of you are experts in cyber insurance? How many of you are novices in cyber insurance? Maybe you understood a question on the application. Okay? Hey, if you know how to say the word cyber insurance, you're one step ahead of most brokers here in the United States. So give yourself a round of applause. But, oops, there's a chair there. Okay, so to start cyber insurance conversation, I usually have the conversation of what happened in the past year that may impact not you as Cactus Corp, but you as a human being looking at applications moving forward. So in the past year, one of the huge cases, a high-profile breach case, and their consequence was Change Healthcare. 190 million people were impacted by this. The data that was compromised was health insurance member ID numbers, patient diagnoses, social security numbers, billing information, and financial details. This financial impact cost more than $3.09 billion, with a B, ladies and gentlemen, $billion of related expenses to this breach. You'll be happy to know, or Change Healthcare was happy to know, that their insurance policies, they had more than one, did cover their $3.09 billion in this breach. You want to know what caused it? Impacted MFA credentials. There you go. CDK, auto dealerships. If you tried to buy a car on July 4th of last year, guess what? They had to figure out what a paper and pencil was to write an application for a policy to buy a car because all of the auto dealerships in the entire US were shut down by CDK. Guess what? $605 million of financial loss that weekend. There are now 8 lawsuits been filed against CDK because of the fact that it was an impactful event of third-party management. We'll go over what that truly means coming forward. The next one is Caruth, Compliance Consulting and Privacy Impact. This was a retirement savings plan that affected 2 decades of PII, PHI, and PFI. You know what caused it? A phishing attack. You're welcome. How about PowerSchools? 62.4 million students and 9.5 million teachers were impacted. Their sensitive data, their social security numbers, and their medical records. Potential identity theft and privacy violations. This is where my little temper tantrum comes out. You know what the insurance company said? Oh, we'll give you this as a benefit because we feel bad. One year of identity monitoring. I'm sorry, the little 5-year-old kid that's in kindergarten had their identity theft stolen, their social security number, they're 5. When are they going to identify this? Not within the next year. 13 years from now. Are they going to be covered? Nope, not covered. So, any piece of advice for any parent that was impacted by PowerSchool's freeze your child's credit today, because then it has to be frozen for the next 13 years. There you go. That's that part. These are challenges that I bring up today because as your CISO of Cactus Corp, or your whatever you're playing the role of today of Cactus Corp, these are impacting your insurance policies today and tomorrow. Do you want to know what else? Something cool? Remember that blue screen of death event that we all saw come last June? You want to know how many insurance policies paid out on that? Approximately 0, because it was not a cyber event. It was a computer file displacement. So therefore, insurance did not have to cover that business outage. Go figure. Guess what's going to be written in policies now? Okay. So these are changes that CISOs have to look at in past to move forward. And now we're looking at the definition of cyber insurance. Cyber insurance is indicated as the financial risk transfer mechanism that helps organizations mitigate the impact of cyber incidents, covering the financial losses related to data breaches, attacks, business interruption, and legal liabilities. So here's where you're trying to figure out, well, what does this all mean? How does this work? So as your CISO of Cactus Corp, by the way, I gave your financial officers your applications.
What's your name?
Oh yeah, John, you have it. So you have your application for your entire organization. You have to fill it out, okay? You know everything about Cactus Corp, therefore you now have to fill out these applications. Good luck. Good luck. Because I was kind today as your advisor and only brought the application of 3 pages or 6 pages. There's applications that have up to 500 pages. You're welcome. Okay, now, guess what? Can one person answer these questions? No. Can one person answer these questions? No. It takes a village, ladies and gentlemen. It takes a village because these questions come into play of, how does your HR department do onboarding? I don't know. I'm the customer service rep. How am I supposed to answer this question? How does your data privacy officer handle all the data privacy compliance regulations? I don't know. I'm the CFO, right? So these are points of reference that a lot of times we're really mean as a corporate America and say, hey, one person, fill out this application. It can't be done anymore. It needs to be a party of like multiples, right? So bring in your CFO, bring in even your CEO. Let them be a part of this conversation. Bring in your HR department, bring in your data privacy officer, and make sure you all are answering these questions to your full knowledge. Because here's what's going to happen. Your breach is going to happen, and you will call your insurance company and say, hey, Rob Insurance Company, guess what? We had a breach. And Rob Insurance Company's going to go, okay, well, did you have MFA? It says you did on your application. And Rob's like, well, I don't know. I don't have MFA. Guess what? Now you were negligent and you were fraudulent and you do not have any sort of cyber insurance policy to cover anything. Make sure you fully understand your limitations, your exclusions, and what is covered. Because just saying you have ransomware payment coverage, okay, that's great. What does that mean? Are they going to pay your ransom payment? Are they going to pay all of it? Are they going to pay $1,000 of it? Guess what? A threat actor is not going to talk to you very much if you're like, I have $1,000. But your threat actor is also in your Cactus Corp's environment. They saw your policy you have saved there. They know that you have 25 million of ransomware payments. So guess what? Your negotiation status note says, we want 25 million. Your insurance company will pay for it. They know that. So be very careful where your policy is stored and who knows it and what it does entail. Okay, so we've already discovered that our application is really hard to fill out. There's a lot of components on this application, and I know I only gave it to one person. It was kind of intentional because you're going to give it to one person in your office, right? So it becomes very difficult for that one person to give out. Now, that one person gave me back the applications as your broker, and I said, hey, here's 2 policies. Start reading through those policies. Let me know what you think. Accept one of them. You might want to talk to your neighbors and see if you want to accept these policies, because there's two policies in that packet. Let me know. There's one application that's like one policy that's 2 pages long and one policy that's like 8 pages long. Let me know what you think. Scott, right off the bat, which policy are you going to choose?
Probably the 8-page one.
Probably the 8-page one, right? Come on, what are you going to choose? The 8-page or 2-page? She's going to choose the 2-page one because it was short and sweet and to the point. Got it. Oh, but now wait, as any good CISO knows, You just skimmed and scanned. You hoped for the best and hope it said what it did, right?
Goes for comfort.
But you know what? You forgot to find out that our 2-page policy here only covers $50,000 of a breach. Okay, you're Cactus Corp. You've already made $500 million this year. Is that 2-page policy going to do anything for you? Nope, not going to do much. And if your insurance broker says, hey, take this policy, it's only 2 pages, I'm sorry. Do you know anything about cyber insurance? Says your first question back to that broker. Okay, so now you're like, okay, I'm going to get the 8-page policy. What does it say? Well, the 8-page policy actually indicates that you have a 20% retainer. It also indicates that you have to use surefire incident response, Tetra Defense, which is now Arctic Wolf incident response, or Kroll incident response. Those are your 3 choices. Out of all the entire US, you're only allowed those 3 choices. Guess what? That's that policy that you just signed you were taking, okay? And the last one says, that last 8-page policy indicated that you have a $10,000 ransomware payment coverage. Ah, but your CFO says, pay the ransom, I don't care. Ransom was $25 million. Insurance is only going to cover $10,000. Does your CFO just realize that they just wrote a big check out of their own personal pocket? I don't know. I will say, I did not get, as your broker, did not give you the policy that's 85 pages in length because A, I did not want to read through that myself, and B, Costco was going to charge me, or not Costco, Staples was going to charge me $200 to print off that policy and bring in today, so I wasn't about to do that. So that's why you guys didn't get that as your choice. So, but one thing I do want to, so thank you, Allie and John, for covering this. We've decided that probably both of these policies are not good, but you're going to have some sort of premium you have to pay every year, which that's the check that has to be written every year to have the bonus of cyber insurance. Every insurance policy is going to have some sort of deductible. And that's your 80-20 kind of concept of the amount of money that you guys are retaining to pay that lower information. So if you have a breach, you're going to have to pay about 20% of it. Can I come back to that question? Yes, that's like slide 17 in my head. So we'll come to it, I promise. So yes, we've got our policies and our premiums and our monies that we're going to have to pay out. But you want to make sure that you truly, as the CISO of the organization, have read that policy. Know what's included, what they define, because I'm telling you right now, the definitions from insurance is totally different to what you and I would define things, so make sure you understand what those definitions are. By the way, Allie and John, I gave you a list of definitions as well in case you felt the urge to like do a project for us and find a cool one, but you know, it doesn't really matter. But so that's what a policy will look like. It'll include your declarations page, it'll tell you what's included, it'll tell you what's limited. Maybe they're going to pay this much instead of this much, and it'll tell you what's excluded. I'm going to tell you right now 2 of the things that are always excluded: war and nuclear war. So if we get, good point. So in the cyber world, a big cyber bomb could go off and scare everybody. It's not, anything that's catastrophic is also not covered. Hence the reason why the insurance industry is like, ooh, we need to figure something else out because that could be a big nuclear cyber bomb that goes off, right? So they want to make sure that they're helping the other guys out, right? So the difference between war and nuclear war is weaponized. Nuclear is obviously weaponization of nuclear benefit. There you go. So as we talk about this, you are the CISO of Cactus Corp, right? So we are trying to understand. Now remember, John and Allie, you got a baggie of what I call insurability controls, okay? These are called insurability controls. as you are looking through your application is going to ask and should ask for 14 controls that your organization has in place to make sure you're doing the right thing. Utilize your cyber insurance policy as kind of like an audit every year. Hey, do we have that EDR? Do we have MFA? These are questions that you can now go to your board and say, hey, the insurance policy said. It's not Andy saying you need MFA. Your insurance policy is saying. It's that vendor, that third party saying, hey, now you need to do it. Guess what? Your CISO, your CEO is going to be much more have the ability to write that check for an EDR program if the insurance company said. So now, John and Allie, you've got 14 controls you're going to glue onto your piece of paper in order. Now, I'm not expecting these guys to do it themselves. Chit-chat amongst yourselves and figure out if you can help Allie and John. We'll do like Team A and Team B, and you guys can figure out, as Cactus Corp, remember we're a manufacturing company, we made $500 million this year, we're extending into international waters. Put them in order from 1 to 14 of, if we do this, our premium will go down. If we do this, it doesn't really matter, okay? So talk amongst yourselves and see if you can put in order, this is number 1, this will give us our biggest bang for our buck. Number 14, this will give us our least amount of bang for our buck.
But this one is too. This one's up there.
Yeah, absolutely. So in order.
Number 1 gives you, which is the most impactful to your organization to lower risk.
To lower risk
for insurance policy.
Yeah, so I think
It lowers the impact analysis and likelihood.
Right.
That's the risk that you
lowers the likelihood of a breach.
Mm-hmm. It's going to happen, but you want to lower it.
Right.
so for those.
What?
Does this impact the premium?
Yes, it does.
We got that one. Yeah. Cybersecurity awareness. Yeah.
I feel like this is super important, but I think this is too, and I don't know which one first. Because I feel like this dovetails here.
Funny to me is I actually feel like this one actually goes
Yeah.
in there as well, right?
It's
Because
hiding too.
you need to have a readiness plan
In case something happens.
In case something happens, if you don't have a readiness plan, the insurance company's going to be like, bro, what are you doing?
I know they always are asking that on those forms. Like, do you have anything that's end of life?
We don't make medical devices, do we?
That's what my company does too.
Am I fired yet?
No, you guys are doing just fine.
No, I'm at me with the glue stick.
Good.
Judgy right
Just
now.
don't eat it. You're good.
But it's great.
The cafe. I'm gonna go grab a Red Bull. I'm like barely hanging on by a thread. Thank you, sir.
And now we're at the margin.
Unfortunately, end-of-life system protocol.
Probably going to go up to
You want to put it up higher?
So it's
Yeah,
like
I mean,
making its tail go
if you look at your insurance person, if you have an IR,
Then I think
your approved tool sets,
then data privacy probably needs to be a little higher too. Any of those privacy policies that you have on your website, stuff like that. I don't know if it needs to be.
there's a reality and there's what we wish it was.
Exactly. Yeah, I think.
That's what you're saying, yeah.
Because it's such a humongous vulnerability.
There must be a new one I'm not aware of.
I'd put
What do you mean by
remote dis-
AI protocol?
On the applications in 2025, we're going to start seeing how are companies utilizing AI.
Okay, so maybe
What-
not AI protocol, but AI usage.
Do you actually have some sort of policy? Maybe it's in here, but have you thought about it?
It's in California, in the state, they've actually have it integrated into
Yeah.
their processes.
Because they now understand that people are using it in their businesses. Who would have thought? And how are people using it?
They don't know.
Well, that's the thing. That goes down to supply chain
$1 million
management.
idea today.
This is actually Shark Tank, so we could do that.
Okay.
And then data privacy?
God, that's so sad to see that so far down.
Yeah, literally. Correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, your wish is my command.
Allie's doing the things.
Yeah, I do agree, but I think we can probably bundle it in with data privacy.
So is that intentional? There's no DLP?
Data loss prevention.
They actually consider that part of data loss prevention is actually thrown into network logging to make sure that the data is not being.
So maybe data logging that's being compiled.
But don't
that's
put down
interesting.
if there's needed.
Again, that talks about your definitions, right? So it may not be in that list, but it's understanding what they define as DLP.
Are those handouts that you handed out?
I can give you guys them. Unfortunately, I only made like 7 copies, but at the end of the day, if you want them, you're welcome. But the problem is these are actual real insurance applications, so I just have to be very careful of. Okay, you have about 30 seconds to glue your choices down.
Even if you're retired from this company, you'll never know if you're there because you're dead.
Before you find out.
Your jobs will be posted before your obituary. So I'm just saying.
This is a second. That one's fine. This is a second mic. What's really hard is if they're having a conversation and you walk away, it doesn't pick it up. So, are there gonna be more like?
This is it.
This is it. Okay. So how about this? If someone has a question, you hand them this.
Oh, okay.
So then I can capture that because usually, or if you want to walk closer to the person asking the question, it'll pick it up. But if you're on the other side and they're asking it, I can't.
For my question and answers, do you want me just to give them my mic and get closer to them?
This would be easier just to give them this. So
Okay.
if you just want to clip this on.
When we get to that part?
What's that?
When we get to that part, or is it on now?
It's on right now.
Okay.
So, should be. All right, now it's on.
Okay.
So, whenever there's something where someone's talking, just give them that, and then I'll be able to pick it up better.
Okay.
Or if it's easier to walk up to them, just to be close, where
Okay.
that mic can pick it up, and that's ideal because most of the time everyone's close to whoever's speaking, like the question.
Mm-hmm.
But if you happen to be on the other side, or like when they're having their conversation right now, you don't get any of it.
You don't get it.
Right. So, and I think like that would be useful.
Yeah, for the video for sure. Okay. So, glue your things down because we're going to go over and review.
All right, so are we set?
What we do? Do some shoulder surfing.
Okay, teams, as they glue their products down in their order, I'm going to ask your top 3. What were your top 3 choices and why you put them in that order?
MFA, cybersecurity training, and backups.
Backups. Okay. And why did you pick those 3 as your top 3?
We're already familiar with them as part of cyber insurance.
Very good. Good qualification. How about you guys? What were your top 3?
MFA number 1.
Backups and incident response.
So this team picked MFA, encrypted backups, and incident response plan. Why were these your top 3?
Well, MFA should mitigate a lot of the threats or the risk there, right? And if you look at what happens after a breach occurs, that's the third thing they're going to do when you get to a certain point, right? The secured, encrypted, and tested backups, that's because if something does occur, and we assume it will, how quickly can we recover and get back to operations?
Very good. Now you'll remember, ladies and gentlemen, that in our presentation, our keynote presentation earlier today, 99% of breaches would not occur if people have MFA. Guess what? The insurance companies truly believe that to be a statistic, and I didn't know where that statistic came from, so I always had to use the they believe. Well, now at least I know where it came from because
87% of statistics are made up.
well, that's what I was afraid of, right? So, oh, hold on.
Let me just say that also in many of the insurance applications I've had to follow, they ask if you're using Microsoft AD or Microsoft Exchange, because if you are, you're at risk. Period.
Done.
Yes.
Not even like the new Microsoft 365? Really? That's interesting. I hadn't heard that one before. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so this is where we come into our magic of insurance, right? They will tell you that number one will be MFA, but then you just need to have the other 14. Like they need to make sure that they're included. It's not going to actually tell you why or how it's impacted, but the fact is that they're going to want to make sure that you've got MFA included. Now, some of the magic of this year is they're no longer asking for EDR, they're asking for MDR. It has to be managed. Are all companies doing it yet? No. Is it coming down the pipe? Yes. So just be prepared because the insurance companies know that the threat actors are getting at 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning, that Cactus Corp is not going to be having their watchdogs on at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. That's why they're kind of moving more towards a managed situation. So just be aware of that.
Is that primarily Chubb that's doing that, or is it the bigger ones?
The bigger ones start and then it filters down.
Okay,
yep.
I may have missed it, so I apologize. Did you also cover that in some cases the insurance company makes the decision, even if the C-levels say, I'm not going to pay the ransomware, the insurance company looks at the risk and et cetera and says, you must, and they do.
So we did talk about the fact that your insurance company is going to pick who does your incident response, right? And this goes back to their definition. Who are they defining? Who's on their quote-unquote panel? Who do they have special rates with? Now, Bob, do you have Arctic Wolf as your MSSP? No. So Bob does not have Arctic Wolf as his MSP. Who do you have? Don't say okay. He's got anybody, ABC MSSP company, right? He wants them to do their incident response, okay? So here's where the trick comes into play. If Bob gets breached today and he says, ABC company is going to do my IR, guess what his insurance company is going to say? Good luck with that one. We may or may not pay. Well, that's a big iffy question because you've got this insurance policy that says they're going to pay, but you're like, oh, maybe? You have to make sure that you have written in the policy at your time of renewal or time of original execution who your MSSP is. Who is your incident response team? Who is your incident response lawyer? These are all things that you want to write into your policy from day one. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of whoever's on their panel. Now, maybe you're not familiar with the three big law firms, Mullen Coughlin, Baker Hotsteller, and Baker and McDonald Hopkins, okay? Those are the three of the bigger ones, right? They're approved on most of the insurance companies. If you're not familiar with them and you're like, okay, I'll go with McDonald Hopkins, right? Great, that's great, but you need to make sure that on day one, you call McDonald Hopkins and say, hey, this is John at Cactus Corp. I'd like to set up an interview just to introduce myself to you guys and show you who we are and what we do and the income that we make and our expectations, because on that worst day of your business life, if you're going through quote an old-fashioned phone book and picking the name off of the chart, You don't know. And that's not a very good place to make that kind of decision. Whereas on day one of your policy, you feel more comfortable interviewing Mullen Coughlin, interviewing Baker Hotsteller, interviewing McDonald Hopkins to say, you know what, I really did like Blair at McDonald Hopkins, right? That's my attorney. Have these people, and put your retainer in place, because relying on the panels is truly at the financial benefit of the insurance company. Do they do a great job? Absolutely. Surefire, Arctic Wolf, and Kroll are great incident response teams. I will never tell you otherwise, right? That's because they do it every single day. They know how to do it. Is it great to have that third-party view of your incident? Absolutely. Does it sometimes make sense to have them come in over ABC? Yes. But does ABC know your environment? Yes. Yes, they do. So really weigh the two and make sure it's written into your policy on day one.
Cover that again on your assessment. It's kind of like going to your insurance company and saying you didn't have 3 accidents, and they finally find out you did. So if you lie on that assessment on your security plan, et cetera, it could null and void. And they're not giving the money back.
No, it's fraud, and it's null and void, and you will not have any coverage.
Yeah, that's an important piece.
Yeah.
Say you have something EDR and you do
It's fraud and negligence, and you do not have coverage. What?
It'll go against you criminally if you're not careful.
And it'll go against you criminally. And they are coming after CISOs now. Criminal investigations for CISOs for negligence. So here's my insurance point. As a CISO, you need to have your own insurance policy. That's my little soapbox, that you probably should be getting your own individual, because here's the reason why. You are not a part of the DNO, the Directors and Operatives policy. You are not part of the C-suite. Although you are CISO, you're not part of the C-suite. You're not covered under directors and officers. That's why you need your own policy. That's my soapbox for the day. Okay, so now we've talked about your application. We've talked about your application or your questionnaire. We talked about your policy that came back from your broker, and we talked about your insurability controls that have put into place. What do we look on time? Eight, perfect. That gives us great time. So now you are the CISO, and you are talking to your team about your CEO came to you and said, you've asked for EDR, MDR, MFA, all these alphabet soups. What's in it for me? As your CEO, why is this beneficial to me? And your response is, my insurance policy says. It also says you can use your insurance policy as your financial risk mitigation tool. This will help us mitigate risk and transfer the financial cost by using insurance. Your insurance policy is also a key to your incident response plan. I think you guys picked it as number 3, right? Yes. Yeah. So your insurance company is going to ask for your incident response plan. Your incident response plan is not called Dara Gibson. I guarantee that's not your incident response plan. It was, backstory, I did have one client, that was his incident response plan. Friday at 5 p.m. he calls me, he says, I think something's weird going on with my system. I said, okay, well, let's start your IR plan. You called me, let's start it. And he's like, no, I'm a gambling man. I said, oh, okay, so what should we do? He said, I'm gonna wait till Monday and see what happens. I said, oh, okay, good luck with that. I'll talk to you Monday morning. Monday morning, he calls me at 8 a.m. and says, guess what? Yeah, I warned ya. I kind of didn't have sympathy for him. And as the CISO, he was actually, they did come after him criminally because they thought it was negligent of him not to start the incident response on Friday at 5 p.m. So.
Well, cybersecurity insurance even tells you have to contact him within X amount of time.
Oh, he didn't listen to me on that one either. He didn't have insurance either. Exactly. Needless to say, he's no longer a client of mine.
Mitigating financial risk does not mitigate reputational risk either.
Yeah, mitigating financial risk does not mitigate reputation risk. However, insurance will cover both. They will help you rebuild your reputation. They will actually get you in touch with your, reputational consultant or whatever to make sure that the picture is as pretty as possible. So you can also utilize cyber insurance to help with your third-party risk management. That's where they're going to help pay for people above you that you buy from and people that you sell to. That's where your third-party risk management program comes into play.
Some of them also offer the ability for the incident response plan to they'll provide help services.
Absolutely. Insurance companies will actually help pay and provide you sometimes a rebate back for getting an incident response plan written, utilizing an insurance specialist, consultant to go in and write your incident response plan and help you make sure that that's done properly. That'll be paid for by your insurance company. So take advantage of those proactive services as well. So now that gives us about 5 minutes that we can help you ask and help and answer questions on your organization. It doesn't have to be Cactus Corp. You can word it as Cactus Corp if you want to protect yourself, or we can take a break. Your choice. Any questions? She said thank you. This was fun.
Insurance with regards to maybe covering it. I've got a third party coming in doing a pen test, and for some reason they went beyond their scope and actually ended up hitting our employees or something. So,
and then did it actually become an incident at that stage?
Yeah, let's say it became an incident.
Okay, now they pay for it. They won't pay for the pen test, but they'll pay for any damage that was done. Good question. Good question. So, good point. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the pen tester's insurance that's going to come and cover the damage, because that's that third-party risk. But you'll want to
just say something like if they cause anything.
Just like in a car insurance claim, that you're going to file it with yours, and they can go for subrogation from the other company as well.
So it probably comes down to they actually clearly call out that scope. It should be assumed, but it should nothing, right?
Any other questions? Well, thank you guys. Have a great rest of the day, and I hope you learned something from this. Thank you.